There's a quiet revolution happening beneath your feet, and it starts with a handful of rice. Gardeners are always chasing healthier soil, faster composting, and stronger earthworms. But most overlook one of the simplest, cheapest tools available. Rice, yes, that humble pantry staple, has the power to supercharge your soil biology and produce worms so big and active you'll wonder why you ever paid for worm feed or castings again. Let's dig straight into how this rice secret works and how you can put it to use in your own garden starting today. Before we talk rice, it's essential to understand what drives worm growth and soil health. Earthworms thrive where organic matter is abundant and easy to break down. They feed on decomposing material, not fresh waste. What that means is that if your compost or soil is too dry, acidic, or lacking in microbial activity, your worms will either shrink, migrate, or die. A thriving worm colony depends on a steady balance of carbon, nitrogen, moisture, and microbial life. Most gardeners think tossing in kitchen scraps is enough, but the real trick lies in feeding the microbes that feed the worms. This is where rice comes in. Rice is a carbohydrate powerhouse. When it begins to decompose, it becomes a feast for beneficial bacteria and fungi. These microbes multiply rapidly around the rice, forming what's known as a microbial bloom. Worms sense this bloom and move in to feed, not directly on the rice, but on the microbes breaking it down. That's why rice-fed soil often hosts thicker, more active worms. They're getting a constant, rich microbial buffet. In practical terms, rice acts as a microbial starter that amplifies the natural decomposition happening in your garden bed or worm bin. Cooked rice tends to decompose faster because its starches are already broken down, which encourages quicker microbial activity. However, if not used correctly, it can sour or attract pests. Raw rice, on the other hand, decomposes slowly, but provides a more controlled and long-lasting microbial source. The best results often come from combining both forms in a balanced ratio. Think 1 part cooked rice to 2 parts raw rice. This combination provides both immediate and sustained benefits to your soil ecosystem. All right, let's get started with a small patch or worm bed. You'll want to mix about 2 cups of rice, following the 1:2 ratio of cooked to raw, into 1 square meter of your garden soil or compost. Now, you'll bury it roughly 4 to 6 inches deep. It should be deep enough to keep pests at bay, but shallow enough to allow for air and moisture exchange. Give it a light watering to create a damp, not soggy environment. Within just a few days, you'll notice the soil warming slightly as microbial activity kicks in. That's your cue that the process has begun. Now, if you're working with a worm bin or a vermicompost system, the method is a tad different. Mix a handful of rice into the bedding once every 2 weeks, making sure it's always buried under other organic matter like shredded leaves, cardboard, or composted manure. This layering helps to prevent any foul odors and balances the carbon to nitrogen ratio. Over time, you'll start noticing larger, thicker worms and a noticeably richer, darker compost texture. Rice is quite powerful, but overdoing it can cause some problems. You see, too much cooked rice, for instance, will ferment and produce alcohols or sour smells that repel worms. The key here is moderation. If you ever notice a sour or anaerobic smell, just turn the soil gently to reintroduce oxygen and add some dry organic material like straw or shredded leaves to restore balance. A good rule of thumb is to let rice make up no more than 10% of your total organic input. That's enough to spark microbial activity without throwing the system off balance. So, the decomposition of rice releases glucose and complex polysaccharides, which feed bacteria that in turn release enzymes and organic acids. These enzymes, you see, break down tough organic matter, releasing nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium back into the soil. Worms feed on these bacteria, producing castings rich in humic acids that really improve soil structure and water retention. Essentially, the rice acts as a catalyst. It accelerates the natural nutrient cycling process in your soil. That's why gardeners who apply this method consistently report looser soil, better moisture retention, and, well, faster plant growth within just a few weeks. After 3 to 4 weeks of consistent rice application, the soil texture begins to change. You'll notice it becoming crumbly, darker, and more fragrant. Worm castings will start to dominate the top layer, indicating that your worms are thriving. To maintain this system, continue feeding small amounts of rice every few weeks, alternating between raw and lightly cooked. Always remember that balance and patience are key. The goal is to sustain microbial life, not overwhelm it. For gardeners working on larger plots, you can scale the ratio easily. Mix 1 kilogram of rice, 1/3 cooked, 2/3 raw, into every 10 square meters of soil. Incorporate it during soil preparation, especially before planting heavy feeders like tomatoes, peppers, or brassicas. The microbial boost will release nutrients gradually, helping plants establish strong root systems without the need for chemical fertilizers. I stopped spending money on commercial worm feed and microbial inoculants the moment I realized how effective rice could be. It's cheap, available everywhere, and when used correctly, creates a living, breathing soil teeming with life. Bigger worms are just the start. What follows is richer compost, healthier plants, and soil that regenerates itself naturally year after year. If you found this guide helpful and want more proven, field-tested soil improvement methods, don't forget to subscribe to Soil Doctor. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are serious about building living soil from the ground up. The next time you cook rice, save a little for your garden. You might just be feeding the most important workforce in your soil.